possible. So, you know, if you can send it to one person and then they send it to another person and so forth, what we're going to be speaking about is going to spread like wildfire, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Is sort of wondering what this is about. So what happened was my uncle, he was 72 years old, his name was Errol, and he had terminal cancer. He's been sick for quite a number of years, and he's been living in a nursing home. And as you can imagine, terminal cancer means what exactly? It means you're dying of cancer. And I think, you know, before I get into the story of my uncle, I think I just really want to share that it's very important, and I want you to just stop for a second before I share the story and say, you know, how would it feel like for this to be your family? You know, how would it feel like, you know, for you to be in this situation, to not what to do? And obviously, look, this is affecting all Australians because we are in lockdown at the moment, and COVID-19 is obviously a major concern for everyone. And the health implications. Look, I don't want to be talking about anything from a political point of view. I only want to talk about facts right now, and I just want everyone to understand that, you know, this can happen to anyone, and I want to share the story and talk about the story alone. I'm not here to talk about anything else. So my uncle...
Can I just, cut in just quickly, Troy? Why do you want to share the story? Why do you think it's important to voice it to not just your friends and family, to a wider audience?
I think it's having the courage to stand up, because if you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing. And
yeah, I agree.
It's very important that if something goes wrong in society, that you say, hey, listen, that's not right. Otherwise, we are just following the trend. I mean, you know, if it doesn't matter what it is, and obviously this is very interesting times where things are labeled as conspiracy. There's different theories that are going around, but what I want to share isn't a conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's a fact. And this is happening. This has happened to my family, and this can potentially happen to a lot of other families out there that may have had cancer, that may have pre-existing conditions, and then obviously COVID is a contributor. So
yeah,
I
awesome.
want to, yeah.
So do you want to go ahead and let everyone know like what happened starting a couple of days ago?
Right. So my uncle passed away, so August 11th. So this is very fresh. So excuse me, everyone, if I'm a little bit emotional or it's a little bit hard to talk, and if I mix my words up, because obviously this is very fresh. And he was a really good uncle. So 72 years old. He's been in the nursing home for the last 2 years, and terminal cancer. He's had it for a number of years, and like lung cancer, emphysema. And as everyone knows, cancer is a bastard of a killer. It can affect anyone, and it can happen at any time. So my mother was notified that he was passing away. She went and saw him on August 11th. And what happened is that it was about 3 or 4 hours after this happened, she received a phone call. Because obviously she said...
after he passed, yeah?
After he passed, received a phone call. And that was from the doctor. And I just want to also just stress something quickly. The nursing home that was responsible for looking after my uncle did a really good job in the time frame that they looked after him. And I want to make it clear that this has nothing to do with them, because they actually are quite good carers. And I know sometimes nursing homes can be looked at in a certain way, but they did a really good job looking after my uncle. So I just want to get that straight first. And so my mother received a phone call, and you know, obviously about his death, and the doctor was talking about the certificate. Now, it's interesting because a lot of people are expecting me to share this story, and I've got video evidence. I have recorded the conversation of the phone call with the doctor that had my mother. I have now sought legal advice, so I have a lawyer, and the lawyer advised me not to release that video right now. And what we're going to be doing is going to be taking a legal suit. So we're taking legal action, and this isn't just about my family, it's about all families in Australia, and it's about fighting for what's right and making sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else again. And if it's going to be a recurring problem, you know, if I, for example, if my family say, let's do this, I think that many other families could potentially go through the same thing, and that's not what I want. That's not what us Australians want. We need to fight together, and this isn't about me. This isn't about my family. This is about Australians.
And setting a precedence for what's right and what's wrong.
Exactly right. And it's going back to the conversation. So the doctor had a phone call with my mother.
Excuse me for 2 seconds, sorry.
Yeah, sure. There was a phone call with my mother, and the doctor was talking about the death certificate. So August 7th, my uncle was... Sorry, guys, it's a little bit hard to get my words out. my uncle contracted COVID-19, so he had a PCR test. So August 7th was a positive test. He passed away on August 11th. So keep that in mind. There was 4 days between contracting the virus and passing away. So as you can imagine, 4 days isn't a long time. He was in palliative care. For everyone listening, he was in palliative care for 6 weeks before he passed away. So this is obviously a long-term pre-existing condition. This isn't something that just popped out of nowhere. He's been sick for a long time. He's had cancer, and he has a number of other pre-existing conditions. I want to make that very clear.
Yeah.
So the doctor was talking to my mother and suggested that the primary cause of death, so the number one cause of death, was COVID-19.
Just quickly, Troy, I may have missed it, but have you gone over the fact that your uncle was asymptomatic?
No, not yet. So,
okay.
Yeah, so I just mentioned that the test came back positive on August 7th, and my uncle actually was, the nursing home actually said he was asymptomatic. So I want to make it clear that, isn't it interesting that someone that is asymptomatic, that has had lung cancer, which is a serious respiratory issue, was asymptomatic to COVID-19. COVID-19.
What does asymptomatic mean for those people at home that might not know what asymptomatic means?
Okay, so asymptomatic means that you have no symptoms of COVID. So that means no cough, no wheezing.
You're pretty much fine, but on the outside you look sweet.
Absolutely. So
despite the fact that the gentleman is passing away from these pre-existing conditions.
Absolutely, and that's something that was noted from the nursing home, and that was spoken to from my mother and my family. So asymptomatic, meaning no problems. He has obviously had pre-existing conditions, meaning lung cancer. And the interesting part about this was that the doctor suggested that my mother would agree to having COVID-19 as a primary cause of death on the death certificate, meaning listed as number one, meaning the main contributor, meaning that everything else didn't matter. It didn't matter that he had lung cancer. It didn't matter that he had even heart issues and all these other conditions that I can list off, which I won't get into detail about. So I think that it's interesting for people to understand what's going on. And obviously my mum, the great thing about this is the phone call, you know, I can get into specifics, but obviously now I have a lawyer and she's advised me not to do this because we're going to be taking legal action. And it's not just about my family, because obviously, and just think about this for a second. How would you feel if your mother or your sister or anyone is going through this, and 3 hours after he passes away, you're getting a phone call from a doctor and that wants to talk about COVID-19?
It's not the right time or place. Someone's in their most vulnerable state. And imagine having someone trying to push their opinion on you, when you're mourning your brother.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what happened from that point forward? So just to recap, the phone call was there. My mother obviously said no, he did not. He died of lung cancer. He's had lung cancer. He's been terminal for a long time. And obviously this is something that, the doctor tried to push back a little bit and suggested that because of the COVID is a respiratory disease, that there was some complications with that, which then contributed, if not really contributed, because they're not saying it's a contribution, it's a contribution. They're saying that it's the factor, number one factor with everything else. So imagine on a death certificate thinking about, lung cancer isn't the number one factor, even though you've had it. That's what started his downfall. He got sick, and then he went to a nursing home. He's in palliative care for 6 weeks. He contracted COVID-19 4 days before he passed away, and the doctor was prepared, and they have actually.
Troy, hang on. What about the part in the conversation? Because I've actually heard the conversation. Troy's played it to me. When the doctor says that he had heart failure, the guy has had heart failure, yet the primary cause is COVID. You wouldn't think that anything would trump heart failure. If your heart fails, that's your primary cause of death.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that your primary cause of death, your heart would come before COVID, and the fact that you're asymptomatic. Yeah,
and look, this is the most interesting part for everyone that's listening as well. So not only did the doctor obviously push for that, and for the people that are commenting, you can see, for example, the test, for anyone that's wondering, it was a PCR test, and you can look at the government website. This is obviously listed on the government website. They cannot distinguish between certain different diseases and COVID. That's something that's on the government website, so you can look that up. So it's a PCR test. Now, as my mum was disputing the death certificate, as you can imagine, she was emotional and she was confused, which anyone would be in that situation, because this is only a few hours after he passed away, and this is just 2 days after obviously he passed away. So today's the 13th. He passed away on the 11th. My mum actually asked, and this is on the recording, you know, I don't understand why this is happening. You know, he passed away from lung cancer, and if they're going to list COVID, like what's the sort of agenda? And my mother actually asked the doctor.
The example's great.
The example, which was interesting, and she said, if this was a car accident, if there was a car accident and someone had COVID, would that be listed on the death certificate? Right, everyone? Would that be listed on the death certificate? And the answer was yes. And that is on recording, and that's why we're going to court, and that's why we're going to fight for all you guys. And it's not just about me and my family, because obviously my mother's upset, and I'm supporting my mum, my family, and everyone else that's involved, and really pushing this forward for all Australians. And it's important to let you guys know what's going on, and it's not okay. And I'm the type of person that's not going to put up with anything like this. I'm not going to accept it, and I certainly wouldn't expect any of you guys to accept this anyway. Like, it's just not right. And I would like for people to understand that this only happened 2 days ago, and it's all very, very fresh. And it's not a nice thing to go through, especially after someone's been sick for cancer for so long, and it's just pushed to the side. To actually have, cancer and his other conditions mentioned as a contributing factor and not the primary cause of death is a disgrace.
And can we just say that this doctor was your uncle's general practitioner for the duration of...
For quite some time. And look, I think, to be fair for everyone that's involved, like I said to you, the nursing home did a good job with him, and they looked after him. I know that they looked after him, so I don't want to put any emphasis on that. And I know that the doctor did a good job, but I think that it's very interesting that one would support such a claim in 4 days' time. It didn't contribute. It's the primary cause of death. And I think it's insane.
Yeah, it is. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It's ridiculous. And, me and Troy wanted to get the word out there, and, we are of the belief that Troy isn't the first person that this has happened to. There are a lot of people that are sitting at home, and a lot of different circumstances where people might be afraid to do what's right and to come out. And we're kind of hoping that by Troy leading the way with the torch, that a lot of people will have the peace of mind and the confidence to do the same. In this day and age, when doing the right thing, you feel like it's almost the wrong thing to do. That's when you kind of know we've gone off the track a little bit, and we both won't stand for that. We're both of the mentality that you only live once. And as Troy said before, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing at all. And it's really important. And if by us putting this conversation out there, and I want to say thank you very much, Troy, for doing this. Like, it's a hard time in your family, and the fact that you guys have gone above and beyond to capture this moment, to set a precedence about what's going on is really important. I just hope that based on this conversation that other people will have the courage to come out as well and say what is happening at the moment is not right. And we can make a stand.
And I'm just reading some of the comments as well, and I know this is a common rumor, is if they offered any money, and because my uncle's body was donated to science, we're having no funeral. So because there's no funeral, there's no incentive, like we're not incentivized to take any money, which unfortunately for people that are listening, we can't prove that. But obviously there's a lot of things that we can prove, especially referring to, the cause of death, which, again, to repeat myself for anyone that has just joined, August the 7th, he contracted the virus with the PCR test. August 11th, he passed away, and it's been listed as the primary cause of death. So
now with that PCR test on that, the document that you got back, Troy, I asked you a couple of questions around that. What was listed? Did it list as positive? Did it list as negative? What was actually tested, and what did come up as positive, as asymptomatic? What was the result of that test on that document?
So I've got it in front of me on the computer, and it says, it says SARS-CoV-2 RNA, and the swab, it says detected with an asterisk. So, and that was collected at the 7th of August. So,
So SARS, it's just the SARS virus, which has been around since God knows when, a lot longer than this COVID pandemic. And that's what he's tested positive for. Yeah.
And I just want everyone to understand that, look, the best advice that I can give anyone is if anyone any family members have cancer, I think it's extremely important to, record the conversation. And now, one of the number one reasons why I cannot share the recording is because I did not ask for permission. So if you are recording a phone call from a doctor, just let them know that, hey, this call is recorded. So you're asking them for permission, and then you can use it and post it. So that's the only reason why I can't post it, because it's actually a criminal offense for me to post it. So I've obviously gone down the road of taking, getting a lawyer, and we're going to take them to court and obviously, hopefully, get some answers for everyone that's listening and just for all of Australia.
Yeah, definitely. Just something really quickly on that, something interesting that I found out today. I just wanted to add this to this general conversation that I know it's a really hard time for people whose family members may have passed away of late. If by any chance anyone's family members have passed away and they have been told that the primary cause is COVID, if on the death certificate there is a number 07.02, that number, that reference number there, that stands for an assumption that that person is assumed to have passed away from COVID. It's not actually being tested for. So I personally, as well as Matt Lawson Photography, Fanos, anyone else, if I know it's a really hard time, but we need the data behind this. If you do have those numbers on any death certificates or anything like that, I'd also like to hear from you. So with the boys within the group.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a few people that are mentioning about the recording. I can believe me. When I first heard it, I was amazed. It's a blessing that there is such a recording, and obviously, I believe once we go to court, I'll obviously listen to what the lawyer has to say, and then my intention is to release these as soon as I can. As soon as I've given it a go, I would like to do it, because obviously, I actually said
in the public's best interest.
I actually straight away I just said, look, what's the charge? Contacted a lawyer. What's the charge if I release it?
Yeah. Look, you were actually willing. You rang me this afternoon and said, hey, I was like, I'm actually willing to cop a financial charge on the chin to stand up for what's right. And you were going to do that. And then on the advice of your lawyer, you said, you know what, I've got to keep this to myself because it can be detrimental to what you're going to be doing, the proceedings of court.
Yeah, exactly. If it wasn't for the court proceedings. And look, to be honest, the intention wasn't even to take this to court. Like, I had absolutely I wasn't willing to do it. There wasn't even a consideration. I just wanted to let everyone know what was going on, because it's just not right. And I think that, when you do start talking to people and it makes sense, and you're speaking to a lawyer and they're like, hold on a second, we can do something with this. And it's not, like I said, it's not about money. It's about making it right and letting everyone know, hey, this is not acceptable. We're all in lockdown, right? Especially in Melbourne, but it could potentially be Australia-wide. We're obviously all affected by this. And if they are organising a fake, I can't say fake because I don't want to use, that's not the right word, but.
Well, SARS is a thing, isn't it? And that's what he's been tested positive for. SARS is a thing. Yeah, SARS has been around for ages, but if they're blowing it out of proportion and they're exaggerating the numbers.
Fake COVID death, but it's probably not the right thing to say, but it's definitely the interesting diagnosis. But doctors are actually supposed to do, when they do a certificate, they're just supposed to do the certificate. It's interesting that the doctor had the courage to actually run it by my mother, because he knew that was a little bit interesting. And the more that you think about it, the more questions it raises. So I would just like for this post to be, for everyone to listen, and if something goes on in your family, record the conversation, especially if it's with a doctor, and let the doctor know that it is being recorded. That's probably the best advice I can give anyone, because as soon as you do that, there's going to be a lot more credibility and more people are going to be able to file suit and do something against the government.
Yeah, definitely. And moving forward, as I said at the start of this conversation, a lot of people may have missed it. Our plan is to share this conversation on as many social media platforms as possible. So if you are recording it, and we both will add it to our timelines, if you can share it to Australian We Are Young and Free groups, and people that are starting movements within their community and open-minded, and just people that are having the conversation, that are